Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So the topic of today's video is going to be love addiction, as you can probably already tell by the title. So at the start of each of my videos from now on, I want to state why each topic is important, because when you understand why a topic is important, you tend to grasp it better and you tend to remember more of the information that's given to you. So the topic of this video is important because love addiction is something that a lot of people are walking around with and they have no clue. It's not very well researched. Like, you're not going to find a lot of information on it. So a lot of people don't get diagnosed with it. And those who are aware that they have it, they tend to not even seek help for it because it's seen as less important or less dangerous than, let's say, a drug addiction to heroin or a drug addiction to cocaine. But the truth of the matter is that love addiction can be just as harmful. So the point of this video is to make people aware of what love addiction is, list some symptoms so you can know if you have it or not, and then I'm going to have a video on how to heal, because that's a lot of information for just this video. So that is the importance of this video. So let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, the definition of addiction is the compulsive and chronic use of a substance in order to soothe an uncomfortable feeling, right? So the key words there are chronic and compulsive. Chronic meaning over a long period of time, and compulsive meaning without much thought. So you're just naturally doing it or naturally reaching for it. For example, if you take a Tylenol, right, because you have an uncomfortable feeling and a headache, you're using that Tylenol to soothe that headache, but you're not necessarily addicted to the Tylenol because you're not using it chronically, meaning that you're not using it over a long period of time, and you're not using it compulsively, meaning that you are not reaching for it without thought. Now, if we plug in love into that equation, the definition of love addiction would then be using love chronically and compulsively in order to soothe an uncomfortable feeling. As humans, we reach for healthy love, but healthy love is supposed to be a means of enriching our already rich lives. We tend to get in relationships by bonding together with someone during the honeymoon phase, meaning that we become infatuated and there's this release of like strong emotions that attract us to each other and then make us want each other, right? Eventually that honeymoon phase has to die down. Like, it has to transition into a more mature love. If you're with someone for 10 years, you're not going to be in the honeymoon phase for that full 10 years. So healthy love is transitional. It goes from the honeymoon phase to a healthy, more mature, more stable love. But with love addicts are only seeking that honeymoon phase. So with love addiction, once that honeymoon phase is over, it starts to feel like withdrawal. So let me run that back and repeat it. With love addiction, if you are addicted to love, once that initial high of love or that honeymoon phase wears off, it starts to mimic the feeling of withdrawing from a drug. And therefore, a drug addict will jump from one relationship to the next seeking that love high. Because love addiction is not about love. It's not about that person in particular. It's more about trauma or having an intolerable reality, right? So basically, a love addict will use that love high to distract themselves from life. It's not about being addicted to a specific person, because once that high wears off, then they're looking for another person. And with love addiction, it's really just a form, like I said, of soothing uncomfortable feelings. And it's very easy to distract yourself from any grief or trauma you've been through when you are basically obsessing over someone else, or you throw your attention into someone else. So that's what love addiction is. There are 4 common causes of love addiction. So the first cause of love addiction could be inadequate or inconsistent nurturing. So if you have parents or caregivers, whoever raised you, who just did not nurture you enough or only nurtured you sometimes, then you're more prone to being a love addict or developing love addiction. The second cause of love addiction is low self-esteem, which is a whole nother video in itself, because low self-esteem can come from a number of places. But if you have a low self-esteem, you are more likely to become a love addict. The third cause of love addiction is the absence of positive role models in terms of committed relationships. So if you grew up amongst dysfunctional relationships and you never had a representation of what a committed, healthy love life looks like, then you're more likely to develop love addiction in adulthood. And the fourth cause of love addiction is being raised with cultural images of the perfect type of romantic love, or like happily ever after stories. Now, what does that make you think of? just let me repeat that. Another cause of love addiction is being raised with cultural images where this idea of perfect love is presented, and then there's a bunch of happily ever after within the storylines. Sounds like Disney to me. Disney movies, right? Right? Like, okay, I was dating this one guy, and he would always say to me, you watch too many Disney movies because your idea of love is not exactly what love is. And I always used to laugh it off, and I used to be like, oh, that's ridiculous. But then when I read that fact about love addiction, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, those are the causes of love addiction. I literally just went on like a 10-minute rant about Disney movies and didn't realize it, and then my camera died. So yeah, I'm gonna do a whole separate video about how Disney movies ruined my life and potentially have ruined your life and gave us unrealistic expectations of relationships. So yeah. Okay, so let's get into the signs that you could possibly suffer from love addiction. Now I'm going to try to go through these quickly because I have 11 of them, so I'm not going to explain that much in detail, but most of them are pretty self-explanatory anyway. Number 1 is confusing intense sexual feelings with love. So if you are the type of person who, after you've had an intense sexual experience with someone and automatically you feel like you're in love with them, then you could very well suffer from love addiction. Number 2, returning to painful relationships after you promised yourself that you would not. So if someone did you wrong, someone cheated on you, someone hurt you, and they inflicted a lot of pain on you, and you swore up and down that you would never ever go back to them, but somehow you end up back with them, that can be a sign of love addiction. Number 3, constantly craving or searching for love. So if you are the type of person who everything that you do, like on a daily basis, is centered around finding a partner, like even if you don't even realize it, but somehow you always end up trying to talk to someone in a romantic manner, then that can be a sign of love addiction. Now, I just want to stop right here for a second and say that like these signs sound pretty like harsh and straightforward and like accusatory and judgmental, because when I was reading them I was like, oh, like, okay, just come for me then. But honestly, it's nothing to be ashamed of because like I said, you're primed for it from childhood, so it's really not your fault. So it's okay to admit that you do these things. So then if you do admit that you are this way, then you can heal and grow and prosper. So I just had to throw in that disclaimer, you know. Okay, so number 4 kind of goes along with number 3. Number 4 is having trouble leaving an unhealthy relationship. So if you just know a relationship is no good for you, you know you're going to end up heartbroken and they are not meeting your needs, someone who does not have love addiction will leave. But someone who does have love addiction will have a very hard time exiting that relationship. Number 5, feeling desperate or alone when you are not in a relationship. And that one is pretty self-explanatory. When you're not romantically involved and you feel like something is missing, you might feel like an emptiness or like a space needs to be filled whenever you're not romantically involved with someone, to the point where it's distracting and it keeps you up at night, like to the point where it's extreme. All of us, I feel, to an extent, feel some sort of like, you know, longing for someone to be with us, but with love addiction, it's just more severe to the point where it interferes with your life, you know. Number 6, having a hard time maintaining a relationship when the honeymoon phase is over. And I talked about that briefly in the introduction of this video. After that love high is over, if you feel like you completely lose interest in the person that you're with and your head starts to go on a swivel looking for the next person to be with, then you could suffer from love addiction. Definitely. Now, I feel like it's normal, because I have to keep differentiating between what's healthy and what's not healthy. I feel like it's normal and healthy to maybe have ups and downs in a relationship when you feel like you are less connected to your partner than before. But with love addiction, it's just more extreme. Like you felt like you were head over heels in love one day, and then as soon as that intensity wears off, you're like, oh. Like, and then you start feeling that emptiness and that sadness and those withdrawal symptoms, and you feel like you have to start to search for it elsewhere. So having a hard time maintaining a relationship after the honeymoon phase is a sign of love addiction. Number 7, using sex and fantasies to fill a void when you are single. Pretty self-explanatory. If there are times where you feel like you just cannot stop fantasizing about sex or like past lovers, or you just create these like wild romantic fantasies in your head and you're like constantly zoning out and thinking about those fantasies in order to fill an emptiness, then that is a sign of love addiction. And number 8 kind of goes along with number 7. and that is using sex or intense emotional feelings in order to get you through hard times. So the minute you're going through any type of stress and hardship in your life and you immediately run to sex, or you immediately run to like trying to jump into a relationship, that can be a sign that you suffer from love addiction. Number 9, choosing partners who are emotionally unavailable. A love addict is almost like the perfect match for an emotionally unavailable partner. I will put in a link to my video, I'll put in a drop card to my video on dysfunctional relationships and how we tend to seek out emotionally unavailable people when we have come from a dysfunctional household. So that kind of goes hand in hand with this. Like, love addicted people are on like the opposite spectrum of love avoidant people, which would be, another word for people who are emotionally unavailable. So love addicts do tend to attract love avoidant people, and love avoidant people tend to have addictions outside of love to help them soothe, what they're missing emotionally. So a love addict will end up chasing a love avoidant person. The love avoidant person is avoiding love and zoning out with their own addiction. But I have a full video coming on that too, because that's a lot of information and I can't include it in this video. So yeah, constantly seeking or searching for emotionally unavailable people is definitely a sign that you could be suffering from love addiction. Number 10 is missing out on important events in order to search for love or in order to spend time with your significant other. Now, when we are in a relationship, of course we want to spend time with the person that we're with. Of course we want to be laid up under them. But with love addicts, it's a whole different type of wanting to be laid up under them. Like, your grandmother's in the hospital and she's not doing too well, but instead you want to go watch a movie with your boyfriend. Like, that type of thing. Like, your brother's little league game is tomorrow and he really wants you to be there, but instead you want to go hang out with your girlfriend. So it's like, it's an extreme. Like, I have to keep on reiterating that. Like, a lot of these things on this list we do when we're in healthy love as well, but with love addiction, it's just to an extreme, So if you're missing out on important events to hang out with your significant other, or to go and look for a significant other for that matter, then you could be addicted to love. Now, the 11th and last sign that I have that you are addicted to love is that when your partner starts to pull away from you emotionally, you get manipulative, you get abusive, or on the flip side, you get overly agreeable. Now, this is one of those things that a lot of people are going to have a hard time admitting to themselves, but you just really have to become self-aware and look at yourself and really be honest with yourself. If when you're in a relationship, the person that you're with, you feel like they're ignoring you, or you feel like they're starting to distance themselves from you, do you get manipulative in terms of playing the victim, or maybe trying to make them really jealous, or doing things basically to manipulate the way they see and feel about you? Or do you get emotionally abusive where you start name calling, or you start trying to purposely hurt them? On the flip side, do you almost become like their slave and you're kissing up to them and you're becoming overly agreeable and trying to win them over? None of these things are healthy. None of them. These are things that do not go on in healthy relationships. When someone's pulling away from you in a healthy relationship, you're going to communicate with them, and either you're going to end it or you're going to work through it. But with love addiction, obviously, it's a dysfunctional way of interacting within a relationship. So, of course, when someone starts to pull away, you're going to react dysfunctionally. So, yeah, if you become manipulative or abusive or overly agreeable when your partner pulls away from you, you could suffer from love addiction. So yeah, those are the common signs that you could be addicted to love and you could suffer from love addiction. And like I said before, it's really all a matter of being, honest with yourself and being self-aware, because these things are things that we don't really want to admit to. We don't want to admit that we're addicted to a person, because there's this sense of shame that comes along with that. We don't want to admit that we jump from relationship to relationship seeking this high. It just sounds needy. It sounds desperate, by society standards. So a lot of people don't want to admit it to themselves. But honestly, if you can't feel it, then you cannot heal it. So you need to just admit to, these type of behaviors. And if you have them, then seek, change and seek healing growing from them. Yeah, love addiction is something that you absolutely 100% want to seek help for, only because it interferes with you self-actualizing and becoming the best version of yourself. It interferes with you being able to set boundaries. It interferes with you being able to set goals and focus on your life goals. It interferes with being able to have healthy relationships, not just romantically, but with like your family, with your children. Like if you have any type of addiction, it's going to interfere with your life. It interferes with your job. It interferes with anything basically that's important to you, or that should be important to you. It's going to disrupt. And it interferes with your sense of self-worth and your self-esteem and your self-respect as well. So, you know, this is something that you absolutely want to heal. And it's not something that's easy necessarily to heal, because like I said, you do experience signs as if you are withdrawing, as if you are on a drug. There are groups specifically for people who have love addiction, kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous, like that. Like they have groups to heal this. So this is serious. And, you know, at its worst, love addiction can turn into, you know, homicide, obsessive stalking, suicide. Like it's serious business, people. So I'm doing a video also on how to heal from love addiction, and also resources that you yourself can go to and use to formulate your own plan, you know, for healing. What I do find interesting about love addiction is that, like, if you go and research it, so many people don't think that it actually exists. They're just like, that's not a real thing. Like, just get over yourself. Like, just stop being a baby. Grow up and, you know, grow up and be an adult in your relationships. And I just think it's crazy because, like, of course people are going to think it doesn't exist when they've never experienced it themselves. Like, people are so closed off to that thought. But I am interested in what you guys think about that, though. Like, do you think love addiction is actually a thing? Like, do you think that people can actually be addicted to love? Like, no, you know, no judgment, no bias in the comment section. Like, just like tell your opinion. Like, do you honestly think someone can be addicted to love? I think so. And also, if you have a story to share, or if you feel like you suffer from love addiction, then you can easily share that story down below. As always, we are here to support each other in my comment section. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said before, I have a video on healing coming. I have that Disney movie video absolutely coming. I'm looking forward to doing that video. And make sure you guys subscribe if you have not already. And make sure you thumbs this video up if you found it helpful. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.